of the day are keynote speakers. Speakers is really not the right descriptor for what you're going to experience. But and I just want to briefly say that our secret to put together this event is basically to call all our amazing friends and say like, hey, come jam with our fellows, do your magic, and this is what we're doing today. So we have Sam Seidel. Sam is a really good friend that we leads our K-12 lab. So at the d.school we work with all different audiences, and one of very important audience is K-12 teachers and students, and so Sam leads really important work reaching those kinds of learners and teachers. And then Tunde is actually beyond that. He works with communities. He leads a street code, an organization that empowers community members of all ages to really kind of learn technology and use it to change the world as you are doing, right? So it's really amazing to have both of them. And they actually have a really amazing collaboration. They wrote a book together, among many collaborations that you've had throughout the years. They wrote a book that is coming out really soon, like a month from now. And so we invited them to share some of the work that is captured in the book and beyond, and I'm really excited to have them here. So let's give them a warm welcome.
Anybody know who this is? For $1, go once. Anybody? No? Okay.
Wait, I heard something in the back.
What about this one right here? What about this one right here? Well, I want to start by asking you if you like music, if you like that kind of creative expression, just snap your fingers and keep them snapping. Okay, good. If you like your experience so far at Stanford, can you clap lightly and keep it clapping? If you're excited to learn what the heck creative hustle is and how you can make your expression travel even further, can you make as much noise as you can? Well, Sam and I, who, thank you, Leticia, for that introduction. Sam and I came together on all those elements, right? We love the Stanford experience. We love creative expression. And most importantly, we wanted to get something out into the world. And so when we came together, as Leticia mentioned, on a class and started writing a book and all that things, we started a practice that every time we would come together, we would remember and we would center ourselves on the bigger intentions of our life. And that meant that, we got a chance to actually share in our individual practices a spiritual centering and a way to sort of set those intentions. And I want to do that here today. Before we do that, and I'll just do it for my practice of prayer with closed eyes. But before I do that, I want to ask, is there anything that is on your mind that you're just thankful for? And you could just yell those out popcorn style. Anything you're just grateful for? The sun? Absolutely. I'm sure somebody's from the East Coast thank you for California. Anybody else? Good people? Family? Good food, friendships, experiences, memories. Good. Now I'm assuming that there's detail in each of those kind of one-word answers, right? There's memories. There's particular family members. Now I want us to blurt out just things that we want to remember, and maybe a point of emphasis, maybe something that's on our heart, something that is going on in the world that you just want to kind of remember and it's on your heart right now. Anybody want to share out loud? Anything going on in the world that's tugging at you or going on personally that you want to put into the space?
Situation in Lebanon.
Lebanon. Thank you. Anything else? Detention centers. Thank you. So what we've done with, sometimes with heavy hearts, sometimes with a bunch of gratitudes is we've taken a moment of silence and we've, again, shared our practice. And I'll share that through prayer, but I want to ask all of us before we start, we do that before we do our creative hustle. So I'm going to ask that we just start with a moment of silence, and then I'll end with my practice of prayer, and then we'll get into the session. Thank you. So I'm grateful to stand before a room of powerful thinkers and doers, people who are passionate about the life that we've been given, the breath that we have. I thank you that in a moment of silence, that memories will pop into our mind, that family members will come into our mind, that we don't take for granted things like the sun, things like friendships, things like good people, things like good food. So we thank you that our hearts and minds could be full of that. At the same time, a moment of silence could be full of what's going on in the world, whether it's what's happening in Lebanon, what's happening in detention centers, or everything else that's said and unsaid that's heavy, that may be heavy on our hearts. We're grateful that in moments like this, we could be reminded of what it is to lean on each other, what it is to think of new things, what it is to innovate, and to represent all those things as we come into spaces like this. So as we spend the next hour or less focused on this concept of creative hustle, I just ask that we would feel the energy of each other in this space, share the thoughts and the experiences and all that we bring to the table. That in a moment, especially like this, where for years we've been separated or been just distant from experiences like this, that we could just cherish it. And we just pray that the Spirit would move brilliantly and beautifully in this space. So we're grateful for that. Amen. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you. So as Tunde mentioned, that's a practice that we engage in every time we come together. And I'm going to just dig in a little. I'm Sam. Hi, everybody. Hi, the other Sam. I know there's another. Where's Sam at? We've got multiple Sams in the building. Okay, he's not in here. But just want to share a little bit with y'all about, if I can get it to go, about who we are. I'm going to do that verbally while Tunde figures out if we can share the visuals. But that's really okay, because actually the slide has like 4,000 words that you're not going to be able to read from where you're sitting. But we put them in there so that when Leticia or someone else shares the deck with you, you'll have like full bios on each of us if you're curious about what we do when we're doing things we do. See, I wasn't lying. That's like 4,000 words, right? I'm not going to go into our bios. We just wanted you to have those. But I want to just talk about a few of the things that brought us together, because it strikes me that you all are here maybe seeing some old friends, maybe getting closer with people that you traveled here with, or maybe colliding with folks that you've never met before and may collaborate with. And our relationship started in a room here at Stanford for like a 1-hour session, and all of a sudden we start talking, and now we're collaborating, writing, designing classes, teaching classes, working on projects together, research projects, and writing books. But a few of the things that we connected on when we first came together were, one, that we both felt like we were people who straddled worlds, right? Because on the one hand, here we are at Stanford, this place just full of resources and all this incredible privilege and prestige. But we also were deeply centered in communities that did not have access to all of that actually historically had been oppressed and had been denied resources. And one of the things we connected on was like, we've met a lot of brilliant people at Stanford. I went to Brown University for undergraduate. We met a lot of brilliant people in these places. We've also met a lot of brilliant people in detention centers. We've met a lot of brilliant people in community coding classes. And we've learned just as much from folks in each of these contexts. And we had this idea that we need to unlock some of that. Our society is too separated. People are too segregated, and we need to bring people together. So that was one of the major things we connected on. Another was this kind of optimism we had, that if we could do that, if we could break down some of those traditional silos, if we personally could learn from each other and from others, and we could get everyone learning together, that some really amazing things would be possible. And the other piece that we connected on was we just were both like, wow, so much of what we do and what we know how to do and what we've been able to do in the world has come from the people we know. We just like are so inspired by these people in our lives. What if we could unlock that and share some of the amazing stories and things that have inspired us from the people that we just happen to get to know with much broader audiences, and just break some of that down so that amazing people are understanding and reading and learning about amazing people and kind of cross-pollinating. And all of that led to our first experiment together, which was...
Bam! This event, and you all are getting a taste of this, right? I know UIF program, actually not first by Leticia. It was actually introduced to me first by a brother named Satchel, and someone named Brenda, and another brother named Ngozi. Are those names foreign to you? Or do you know who they are? Okay, if you don't know, you're about to know. You won't go to sleep tonight without knowing who those incredible ambassadors were for this program. But it comes from collaboration, and as Sam mentioned, we collaborated on this event called Creative Hustle, right? We talked about how collaborating. It really came from Sam, who's the director of the K-12 lab at Stanford University, and given the freedom to really think about what does progressive education look like. And I give credit a lot to D.school and a lot to for Sam for thinking of an institution like Stanford making a class available to people who are not students here, but who are part of the community. And so, Brenda, you know what we have at Street Code Academy. It's a bunch of incredible learners that are mostly housed right across the freeway in a community called East Palo Alto. East Palo Alto is very different than Stanford University. You have this very well-resourced, very well-connected, very well-established institute like Stanford University, and you have a 35-year-old city, community of color, very overlooked in terms of resources over there. With Sam, knowing that kind of, we talked about how he's, sees brilliance everywhere, says, I know that if we bring these communities together, there'll be no divide. That was the hypothesis. At the end of this event, when we brought together 3 incredible creative hustlers, we knew that the group would be united on that same common concept, that we're all trying to develop our own path. We're all trying to bring creative individuality to the world, and there's a path that we can collectively find together, and we did that. And so this was a recap of that event, right? Now, we didn't know we were going to write a book together. We didn't know we would be speaking a keynote at one of the probably, prominent programs in the world. We didn't know that. We just knew that there was going to be one step that we just wanted to bring this class together, and it ended up having some incredible fruit. This was a recap of about 3 years ago of an event we did together.
Believed and pushed us to be the greatest and the best. We pushed ourselves to that. There's something about the discipline and the love. Like, when you love what you do, you're always consumed with it. I wouldn't encourage you to pursue the money. I would encourage you to pursue the passion. We all have perspectives that are cool. I'm trying to progress and move people forward.
These creative hustlers, how did they build the mindsets, the skills, and the access they needed to do what they do?
When we have access to hear from some of the world's best creatives, let's open that opportunity for everyone.
So, and just by the way, all the black and white photos that you just saw in that Squint, who was speaking in the video, took all those of all the different celebrities and whatnot. So that's why we were flashing all those, was he was showing his work at the event.
And so that birthed this concept of creative hustle, which we want to introduce that to you. We came up with an exercise that we did over a day and a half, and today we're going to consolidate that exercise and use the last 40 minutes or 30 minutes for you each to do the same thing that all of those creative hustlers, that all the 30 people that we had in that class experienced. You're going to experience that today.
Yeah, so in order to do that, we just want to give you a working definition of what creative hustle means. And it's always dangerous to ask people who just wrote a book to define what the book's about. We're like, how much time do y'all have? Because we have 35,000 words that we could share with you on creative hustle. But 2 words, kind of a 2-word equation, is imagination, being able to see the world in new ways, combined with action, being able to bring those new worlds to life. So for a working definition, for the purposes of the next 45 or so minutes, let's think of creative hustle as the combination of that imagination and creativity and putting it into action in the world. A little more about why that feels so important to us before we jump into this activity. This is just an excerpt from the book that we wanted to share because it's so central to what motivates us around this. Do you want to read it? You want me to read?
How about I read the bold, you read the
Okay, here we go.
Okay. We live in a world where so much is determined for us.
When and where we are born, who our family is and knows, how much money is in our bank accounts, and how much melanin is in our skin. All of these factors indicate precise paths we are expected to follow.
Too often we silence our creativity and let our hustle calcify.
We trade our potential fulfillment and impact for a facsimile of comfort. Human beings have always used creative problem solving to survive.
Let's explore how it can help us thrive.
And we want you all to think about that today because you each come from, and you're about to return to situations where a lot has probably been predetermined for you. People have certain expectations of what they think you should do, who you should be, right? And yet, here you are with peers bursting with creative ideas and energy. So the question that we want to ask and help you answer in the next 40 or so minutes is how will you amplify that energy and go back and build new things? So the subtitle of our book, Creative Hustle, Blaze Your Own Path and Make Work That Matters. And that's what we want to do together. There's some beautiful art that you're going to see just on these slides, and we just want to shout out the artists who we've been working with. The first being Squint, the photographer you heard speak in that video. The second being Hope Meng, who did this beautiful lettering and all the titles in the book. And the third being Jory Titus, who some of you may know through Street Code, another amazing artist who's done beautiful portraits of the creative hustlers we profile in our book. So we just want to shout them out because their fingerprints are all over what you're seeing and even the ways that we even think about what this means based on the artistic renderings that they've created in collaboration with us. All right, let's get into it.
Thank you. So today we're going to think about how we live out that imagination, how we live out that creativity, and then how we put it into action by thinking about three ideas. What principles can help ground us, that can help give the boundaries of how we operate? What people can we work with, be inspired by to help put this into the world? And then what practices could we do on a daily basis? What rituals, what routines can we employ to actually make this work happen? Those are three things that we've seen as we've talked to dozens of creative hustlers. All of them seem grounded in some principles. They understand how to work with people very well, and they have daily routines and rituals that we're calling practices that help them execute in the world. So we want to explore that today. So that's what we did. We have this sheet that we're going to create. Right at that first time, we had a pre-made sheet, but we want you to be able to make it accessible to you. And so we're going to ask that you dig in your paper or in your book bag or in your friend's book bag and get an 8.5 by 11 blank sheet of paper. And we're going to ask that you take out a pen as well. And I'm going to give you all of 1 minute of Bad Bunny's music to do it. There we go. Thank you. That's even better. Leticia can dance, but I ain't going to vouch for her throwing. For 10 bonus points, anybody can tell me where Leticia grew up? You don't know Leticia? Can anyone tell me where she grew up? We got a couple of voices for Hawaii. Chile?
Uruguay, Colombia.
Oh, we got some Chile. Oh, okay. Chileans? Okay. Where'd you grow up? Uruguay. I thought you said Colombia. Uruguay. Uruguay. But then why do you say Colombia? Okay. Both. You grew up with both. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I just want to give you just, I know they're in your notebooks, but I want to encourage you with with just one testimony that means a lot to Sam and myself. which is that at the end of this program, we received the email about 3 months after our program started, and it came with this photo. And it basically was talking about this exercise, the reason why this exercise has been preserved over 3 years, and we're doing the same exercise we did 3 years ago in our very first conference, is because this is what it meant. People love the idea of reminding themselves of the principles, people, and practices, and actually put it on their wall in a highly visible place that will constantly inspire them. And it's actually, this practice has been that same way for me. I can personally tell you and testify that I actually put on one of my goals, right? You'll soon see gifts and goals. One of my goals was to actually be doing workshops in prominent places. And I really wanted to do that. I wanted to be a workshop leader. I was not a workshop leader ever. And now it's coming into practice because I'm reminded of that goal. And I'm taking steps towards that goal. And so, anyways, that I hope that you will be inspired, whether it's on a pullout or whether it's in a binder or whether it's in a separate sheet of paper, that you will be inspired to keep this around and really remind yourself so it does the good that we know it could do. So now I want you to quickly do this. You can kind of see here. But basically, you're going to have two ends, right? The two corners are going to be gifts and goals. Then you're going to have a lane in the middle with 3 different lanes. Maybe I should just put it like this still, where you can see gifts on one side, goals on the far right side, and then 3 lanes that connect those two. Trust me, you do not have to be an artist to be able to do this. I can attest. Looks like we're doing okay. Perfect. Love it, love it. Love it, love it, love it. Love it. All right. That's you, right? For next. Yeah.
We're about to use this for the rest of this time we have together as like the template for our activity. So it's important you have what you need in terms of pen, the little stickies, the paper, and that you understand the setup here. So if you have questions or need a supply, please don't be shy, raise your hand, because otherwise we want this to be useful for you. That's why we're here. So we got one question over here. Anyone else, or does everyone else feel set up to start filling this in with us? I promise we can help if you need something or just have a question about what the heck is going on. That's fine. And we know we're moving a little fast. So any other questions before we move into the heart of the activity? All right. This is going to be hopefully both fun and like pretty fast-paced. And it's also going to be kind of deep because we're going to ask you to think about some really serious questions like what you want to do in the world, what values guide you. These are deep questions. So we want to acknowledge like there's both like a fast-paced creative energy to this, and it's also kind of deep work. So we'll be putting on some music and giving you some moments to dig in and just think about it. The first piece we're going to start to fill in is the one circled in red there that hopefully corresponds to something you've got on your sheet that says gifts. And we've put a few prompts here that we've been testing as we've done this workshop now a bunch of times with different people that have felt really fruitful in terms of getting us to think about our gifts. One like myth about gifts that I want to dispel is, gifts are the thing that come easiest to us. And from talking to a lot of very accomplished creative hustlers, part of what we've learned is that's not necessarily true. Gifts might not come easily. They might be the hard things that we struggle with, but we keep working at. Those things we feel compelled day after day to wake up and dig back in again and try once more. So I don't want you to feel like, well, that's not really my gift because I work so hard at it. Like, no, that is a version of what we mean by gift. So a couple ways to think about it are, what are some of the things you're most proud of about yourself? And then for those of you who are like me and struggle a little with that, maybe an easier way to think about it is, what do other people say you're good at? I don't think I'm good at this, but other people seem to tell me I'm good at writing. Tunde was just telling me on our walk over here what a great writer he thinks I am. So I'll write down writing, even though I don't think, because I'm always thinking about what I didn't get done in that piece I wrote. So we want you to just take some time, use the Post-its if that feels a little more comfortable, because you can write a lot and then pick which ones you want to stick onto your page. So just brainstorm. What are my gifts? What are the things people compliment me for? What am I proud of? And we're just going to take maybe a minute or two. We could play some music and just brainstorm on that. Nice. About how long has this been playing?
This has been playing 50 seconds.
We'll do about 10 more seconds on GIFs. I'm sure you have so many that this will only be the tip of the iceberg, but at least get a few down. Nice. So finish up that Post-it you're on. You can come back to these. You know the prompts now. So if you finish another section a little early and you had more GIFs you wanted to get down or that you get inspired to add, please do. We're going to jump all the way to the other side of the page now. And we'll come back. Don't worry. We're going to help with all the sections in the middle too. But we're going to jump to the other side and think about our goals. What are we trying to make happen in the world? And this could be all types of things. But for the purpose of this exercise and this time we have together, we want you to think about that kind of intersection of feeling ambitious, but also something that's possible. So maybe try to think about goals you have that you could see in a time frame of a year or 2 years or 3 years, like really being able to reach. And in the future, when you do this activity, please pick further afield goals as well. But for today, let's focus on those like kind of not tomorrow, I can check it off, do the laundry goals, but like that next horizon. Okay. All right. So hopefully, again, you've gotten at least one down, maybe a few. I think this may be the hardest thing we're going to ask you to do today. Pick one, right? So I know we got some ambitious people in the room. You're probably like, no, I'm doing all these things. That's great. We want you to do them all. But for this activity, just pick one for now and stick that on your page in the goals column. And now we want to, one of the values we saw when we did our very first class and that when we've gotten to do these workshops since is actually getting inspiration from what each other write down. So what we want to do is actually ask you all to jump on to Poll Ev and share responses to these questions. And you don't have to answer all of them, but just share some thoughts, whatever speaks to you on here. Just consider it a gift. Consider it being generous to your peers here. Share a little bit of what, how you would answer these questions so we can get inspired from each other. And so, uh-oh. Okay. Well, we can go old-fashioned way too, and we can actually just have a few people call them out because I don't want to get too weighed down. So maybe we have a few of these throughout. Maybe we'll try that again. We don't want to slow it down too much. Can anyone speak? So the first question here is, what are you most proud of about yourself, and what do people compliment you for? Back to the gifts. I see a hand here.
I would say that I'm most proud of myself for being vulnerable, and I would compliment myself on a lot too. Sharing my story.
Did everyone catch that? Major key, being vulnerable. And we're actually going to tell a whole story that connects right to that point. Thank you for, couldn't have teed that one up more perfectly. A couple others, yes?
I think a lot of people tell me I'm really helpful. I really like to help a lot, so that's one of the things I'm kind of proud of.
Beautiful. I think everyone heard that because I could hear it, and you're almost the whole room away. Being helpful, and people complimenting on being helpful. Oh, yes, right there. Love it. I take inspiration from that. I need to channel even more of that. Trying new things, taking ourselves out of our comfort zone. Let's shift to the second part. What are you trying to make happen in the world? What does success look like? Those questions around goals.
Provide computer science, activism, and entrepreneurship education to 10,000 plus youth of color across the United States.
Is he with you?
No. We got to connect. Yeah, he said.
All right. There's a conversation clearly that needs to happen, but that's beautiful. So providing computer science, what was it, 10,000? 10,000 youth of color across the U.S.? Plus. No, we're cutting you off at 10,000. Not a single one more. I know that was a well-formulated goal. Not everyone has to be that well-baked, but can we hear a few others? Yes.
I don't want to go after that, but I'm going to graduate.
Graduate. All right. Yes. Solid. Any others? Yes, right there.
Accessible opportunities for everyone.
Accessible opportunities for everyone. That's beautiful and kind of like, I think you've tapped into like what has bonded us for all these years of work together right there. For the purpose of this activity, you might want to think like everyone where, right? Because that's everyone everywhere is huge. So like within what sphere do you want to work within on that exact thing right now? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. One more. Was that a hand or a shirt adjustment?
Reduce the hate between the people.
Reduce the hate?
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Like, and again, I would say beautiful. I would say the same thing. Like the people, like thinking about like, is that on a campus? Is that in a particular neighborhood? Like, where do you want to begin, even if the goal is global? In our country. In the country, which? India. Okay, that's still pretty big, but I'll meet you there at least part way. Beautiful. Okay.
Making everyone we meet as friends.
Say that again.
Making everyone whom we meet as friends, not as enemies.
I love that. So making everyone we meet friends. Man, that's so beautiful. Thank you. Y'all are poets. You're ambitious. That like this is so beautiful. Thank you. And I also just want to say like, thanks for just jumping up with your hands and sharing. I know some of this is kind of like vulnerable. Like, what do I think my gifts are? And I'm going to say it in front of this room. And what am I trying to do in the world? So just thank you for meeting us where we're at, which is just being raw and vulnerable, as our very first speaker said. I think you got it from here.
So one of the things that we've learned, and one of the things that our book is titled what? Creative Hustle. Our book is titled what? Creative Hustle. And it's out in October. It got pushed back a little bit. You know, we like Drake. It's like you think it's gonna happen and then it. No, no. We're on the next batch. It drops in October. But one of the beautiful things that you will see, you will not just see beautiful artwork. You will not just see well-crafted messages like Principles Matter, but you will be able to have access to stories, inspirational stories from some of the best creative hustlers in the entire world. And I believe some of the best creative hustlers in the entire world are sitting right here. So you will resonate with these folks. And I hope that you may know, you may have heard of a musician by the name of Prince. Yeah. Well, this person right here on the upper left, T.C. Ellis, was Prince's very first rap artist signed to his label. And it took somebody with his background, right, who wasn't traditional, wasn't a known path, right? He had to make his own path to try to reach Prince and to make that happen. And so you read about that inspirational tenacity. And then you may have heard of someone named Aisha Curry, because she has been renowned in her authorship. She's been renowned as a TV personality. She's been renowned as an entrepreneur. So you hear about her story and what principles ground her. And then you'll hear a story about somebody who I'm dear to meet, and somebody who would resonate with all of you, who made such profound ambitions and goals. And this is a person that goes by the name Squint. And we have some fingers that are snapping who know him, right? Who know him because he's done work for some of the biggest companies in the world. He's done work, photography work, film work, storytelling work for some of the biggest celebrities in the world, across music, across art, across fashion. He's very renowned in that. But those who know him closely know that there's a bigger something that drives him. It's a bigger principle that drives him. And it's something he's done extremely well. And he talks about this in this chapter, talks about the concept of love. The concept that no matter what he's doing, yes, his eye is behind the camera. Yes, his eye is behind directing a film. But I'm looking at my subject. I'm looking at their messages through a concept of love. And that will allow me to shape a perspective. And that perspective will inspire the world. And so there's in a world where you're dealing with corporations that may not operate out of love, it will be tempting to lose track of that. Can you resonate with that? Yeah. Can you resonate with having a principle and then now you're on a job with something that doesn't share that same principle? Well, that temptation has come across Squint. There's a possibility where somebody doesn't see you for all who you are, right? Here's an African-American person in the middle of Silicon Valley. He's an African-American photographer. Not too many African-American photographers. Even in a sport like NBA that's dominated by African-American culture, there's very few African-American photographers. So you could, I think somebody said we want to eliminate the hate. You could feel that hate sometimes as an African-American inside of the United States. You can feel that hate coming up inside of Palo Alto, this very same community that doesn't see you for who you are. So there was a practice that would ground him to his principle. And Squint would wear red every single day. And it wouldn't be an outward message. Not like he wears a red cap all the time for everyone to see, but he would wear it subtly for himself to remember that his grounding principle is love. So when he comes across something that doesn't align, he's going to remember that. And it's helped preserve his integrity. It's helped ground him to his principle throughout an entire amazing career that he's had. And so we want you to think about, what are your principles? What are your founding, what would be in your constitution, right? What would help you get through a tough situation? What kind of maybe a line out of a Bad Bunny song? Maybe not, but maybe. It may be a scripture that you hold tight to from a holy book that you have. It may be a poem. It may be a word that holds on to it. It may be a motto that you may have for you or your family. Think about that and let's brainstorm. We'll give you a minute to brainstorm on your Post-it notes.
All right, we know this is just the tip of the iceberg. Part of our strategy here is to give you just enough that you get the exercise, but you want more time to go back and fill these in more. But we'd love to hear, just like we did last time, we're going to skip, we had like the questions for Poll Ev, but we're just going to skip that and just do it live. You all were so great on those last two. So let's just hear a little bit about those principles that you were starting to jot down. I got a hand all the way in the back, and then we'll come right down here to Manny.
Trust your genius.
Woo! Trust your genius. Y'all caught that? So then we'll go Manny and then to you there in the middle. Oh, actually, Manny, since everyone's behind you, do you mind standing up and like turning so they can hear you?
First one, easy. Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Don't waste your time being negative.
So key. Don't waste your time being negative. And we're going to do maybe one there and then one there.
Enjoy everything I do.
Y'all catch that? That is like one of the most profound, like I'm working so hard on that at this point in my life. Enjoy everything I do. Thank you for that. I needed that reminder today too. It's good to be here with you all. We were going to do one there, and then we'll come here too. Go ahead.
Choose the right audience.
Choose the right audience.
And also know your audience.
Wow, yeah. That's so interesting, right? Because depending on what we make, like thinking about how do we choose the right audience for our book when anyone could get it, but we can still have a lot of intentionality about who we try to put it in front of. Thank you for that. Who was right here? Yes.
Love yourself first, like putting your own oxygen mask on first, and making sure your needs are met first. Like you can be really caring about other people, but it leads to burnout if all you do is put other people.
These are so good. Somebody, are we recording these? I know we're mic'd. These are so good. Like we want to start adding, like man, I wish we could still add these to the book. So you all heard that about loving and taking care of yourself first. You're on the airplane and they say to the parents, hopefully there will be no emergency, but if there is an emergency, an oxygen mask is going to come down. You got to put it on yourself first before you put it on a child, right? That principle that you're bringing up. Like if you're not breathing, you're not going to be much good to the child next to you. So key. I know there was like a couple other hands and okay, one. Woo! Okay, we're going to do just these three. 1, 2, 3, and then we're moving on.
You should never lose hope.
Never lose hope.
Never.
Never lose hope. Keep the hope alive. Thank you.
Stay calm and think.
Man, we got to get these. Stay calm. These are so good. This is why we wanted to poll everywhere, because we can take it later and share all your good ideas with other people. And then we had one more. Who was it? Right there, yeah.
Being grateful. Gratitude.
Gratitude is the attitude. We talk about that all the time. And when Tunde started with our intentions earlier, like one of the things we've really been intentional about is gratitude, just sharing gratitude for each other, for everything, the sun, all the things we talked about earlier. I think we got to move on because I don't want to shortchange you on the others, but I love the hands up and like that y'all have so much to share with one another and with us. Thank you for that. So we're going to go to the middle lane of the bridge on your paper now, which is about people. And I can't resist just talking a little bit about these three people up here because they're just awesome people I can't wait for you to learn more about. In the upper corner, I didn't just notice we got our musicians in the upper left corner on these. So in the upper left is Jidena, Stanford alum, right? Absolutely. Grammy-nominated artist. You may know his song Classic Man. He's got a lot of bangers, but really incredible creative artist. One of his things is like not chasing the latest trend and trying to get on a song with Bad Bunny just because Bad Bunny's hot right now. Not that there's anything wrong with getting on a song with Bad Bunny. But he's looking at like who's aligned creatively with me and kind of like who's going to be next. Like who's not super famous yet, but I believe in their work that deeply, and aligning himself with them and collaborating with those folks. And that's been a huge component of what's made his career what it's been. Then we got down in front, a longtime friend of mine, Bryant Terry, who you might have seen on the slide earlier. He came and spoke in our very first class. James Beard Award-winning chef, NAACP Image Award-winning author. He's written, I think, 5, maybe 6 now cookbooks, and he's just started his own publishing imprint. And one of the really creative things he did with people in his creative practice was he built, like, basically, you know how like an organization or a university will have a board? He built a board for Bryant. He said, I need that kind of like the way that an organization might go to their board and say, we need advice on strategy and where to go next and how to get there. He actually brought together a group of people and said, hey, if I cook you a good dinner, he has a superpower, he's a chef. So he said, if I cook you a nice dinner, would you give me that kind of advice? And they said, for sure. And that became the advisory board that has helped him to do all the things that he's done in his career. And then the third person, I think some people in the room know. I see a hand going up and back. Yep. Who's that? Sarai, Espinoza, Salamanica. And we have a big picture of her here, done by Jory. So Sarai is an amazing community organizer and shared with us the story of how she immigrated to this country with her family when she was 4 years old. And when she was in high school, one of the reasons they came to this country was so she could go to college here. And when she was in high school, a guidance counselor told her, oh, you're not going to be able to do that because you're not documented in this country and you won't have access. And this was an authority figure, so she thought they knew what they were talking about. So she was just distraught about that. She had a close connection with someone at her church named Sister Freeman. And she confided in Sister Freeman. That's that vulnerability that we talked about earlier. She confided in Sister Freeman something that was raw for her, this disappointment that I'm not going to reach this goal that would have been on the right side of her sheet. I'm not going to get to go to college the way that my family wanted me to. And Sister Freeman happened to know through her son, who worked at a college, that's not true. There's actually ways you can go to college, you can get financial aid, all these things that this person just told you can't do, you actually can do. And Sarai took that lesson of, okay, when I opened up and was vulnerable with my guidance counselor, a whole path opened up to my goals that I didn't know about. So she kept paying that forward, and she said, well, I want to make sure every other student who is immigrated and doesn't have those documents knows that they can have access to college, they can have access to this financial aid. So she created an app called Dreamer's Roadmap. And she would go to pitch competitions, and she didn't have all the bells and whistles, maybe all the tech background that some of the people in the pitch competitions had, but what she had was that vulnerability. And she learned that if she could share that with those audiences, she would win first place in these competitions. She would get the resources she needed. And ultimately, she's built this app which has helped thousands of undocumented students attend college. And I just love this quote from her and the image. She said to us, we're taught that vulnerability is weakness, so we're raised not to share our stories. We're told that we're not supposed to cry in a meeting, at work, or in school. I've had to unlearn that. It is okay to cry in a conference room or a pitch competition because it shows a humanity that we all have. Yeah, right? When I tell you that's only one piece of Sarai's story, like half the chapter in the book is about a whole other amazing thing she's done since then. But that's the taste we'll give you for today. And now we want to jump into that middle lane on your bridge, on your sheet, which is all about thinking about the people who are a part of your creative hustle. What do your friends count on you for? What do you count on them for? Who do you learn the most from? How could you spend more time with the people that you learn from? Whose approach to their creative work do you admire? What about it? So we'll just take a minute, use those Post-its, and put as many of these down. You can choose later which ones to stick. You might not put them all, but for now, just get as many as you can.
All right, so y'all are pretty much bosses when it comes to this format. So is there anybody that would like to share?
My friends count on me to be a sounding board or like a moral compass.
So you got friends. You got a circle of friends you want that you could be a sounding board. Exactly. Anyone else? Go ahead.
The question what it says, who do you learn the most from? Myself, I think, because when people, I don't know, they teach you something until you put practice on it or you live things like that.
Yep.
You kind of like you work. You want learning. Because you learn what you do and not what they say.
I love that. I think that's where we should start. Yeah, go ahead. Any other questions? Just anything around people?
Yes. So the second one. Actually, I learned a lot from
I'm having a hard time. Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah. I really learn the most from new people. So learn their perspectives when I talk to them and learn what they've been through, or when I have some problem and they give me tips, or we just talk about anything. I learn a lot from them and try to like maybe what worked for them and maybe like it could work for me. But I really like to take account of all of that.
From new people. Love that. Anybody on this side of the room? Go ahead.
So I would like to learn from the people who tell me wrong, that I am wrong, because no one here is perfect. Everyone is having something. So I'll go there and learn from them.
Wisdom.
I would like to answer the third question.
Go ahead.
That is, whose approach to their creative work do you admire? So I have a friend. So he has taken a very small initiative. I hope that he has helped a lot more people with that. So he has everybody needs to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever they are, whatever they feel to. So they are not comfortable sharing to people they know sometimes. So he has taken a small initiative, creating an Instagram page where people, like anybody, can talk to him and share their problems, which is very much confidential. And then he keeps it confidential. So, yeah.
I love that. So y'all are finding people in your circle, starting with yourself, finding other people to empower what you want to get done, right? Again, this is moving from your gifts to that one particular goal. And you got people starting with yourself. You got people in your close friend circle group. You got people you can admire. You got people, the new people that you can take advantage of, and that's powerful. So we're going to move ahead to this very last lane. You've now identified gifts. You've looked at goals. You've looked at the lanes that are going to help you move from your gifts to your goals. You've grounded yourself with principles. You've thought about how you're going to work with people in your community, near and far. And now we got this last piece, which is how am I going to do it on a daily basis? What does this actually look like? What is this practice and this routine? And we took a look at, again, all these creative hustlers capture all these to various degrees, right? But we captured in this book ideas that we thought would really help the readers to think about, here's some tangible, unique ones that we can be inspired by. And there's some powerful people on here. You might know, I'll go from bottom to top, you might know this brother by the name of Michael Tubbs. Michael Tubbs was endorsed by only two people. He was endorsed by someone you may have heard of named Oprah Winfrey and someone named Cory Booker. Those are the two people that endorsed this person to become the youngest mayor of a major city in the United States. He was the mayor of Stockton, California, I think by the age of 25, okay? And so now he's, and he was doing some powerful things, and through this, couple of perfect storm led to him losing the last election. And when we talked to Michael Tubbs, anyways, he had some powerful practices to transform how do you think about losing into thinking about lessons. How do what people call losses, I'm going to turn that into learning. That's what Mike Tubbs was talking about. This young lady here named Sean Heater. Anyone seen the movie Coda? No one's seen the Oscar-nominated film Coda on Apple TV? We got a couple of hands. Congratulations, and you're welcome in advance. Watch this film. It's incredible. It's an independent film, if you will, on Apple TV that was nominated for 3 Oscars, I believe. And so anyway, she wrote it. She directed it. Did she write it? Yep. She wrote it and directed it. One of the hottest directors and writers out. And we have her daily practice of what it is to get to that level of accomplishment and that level of authenticity in telling other people's stories. And then you have Sister Tessa up here. Tessa was the CMO of Discord. She's been one of the top 100 marketing folks all in the entire world. She's worked at Nike and GM and several other major companies, Visco, just to name a few. And she has this daily practice where every day she wakes up, she has a common practice of meditating, of exercising, but also talking to her mom. She's an immigrant. Her mom is from the Philippines. And so her mother grounded her in a work ethic that has given her the ability to achieve at the highest levels. But despite that, her mom doesn't know Visco or Discord or any of those companies. Her mom knows her for who she is. Her mom carried her for months. Her mom gave birth to her. Her mom raised her. So there's no one that knows her more intimately than her mom. And so when she can get lofty or haughty, she's grounded by this principle of talking to her mom every day. And so the title of her chapter is Don't Let the Hustle Kill Your Creativity. Don't get so far out there that we forget to center ourselves with who we truly are. And that was a powerful insight that came from Tessa. So we want you now to spend that same 2 minutes thinking about what practices can you do, maybe in the morning, maybe how you end your day, maybe what you do before you speak. It may be what do you do before every class. It may be what do you do on a daily basis to connect with the earth. It may be taking off your shoes and connecting with whatever your practice is. What are some practices that can help you channel those gifts to those goals? We'll give you 2 minutes. Think about those practices you could do. Here are some questions that I didn't mention out loud, but may have hinted at them. What is your daily routine to ensure you stay right? What practices keep you grounded and connected to the source of your creativity? What new rituals are you trying to cultivate? Again, you got a couple minutes. Shout out to Nasir Jones.
So we're going to invite folks to share out a bit on this. 2 things, actually. One, this is the last one of these we're doing. So if you haven't shared yet, this is a moment to pay back like all the folks who have shared so far and be generous with some of your ideas. So I encourage folks who haven't shared yet. The other piece I want to say is like we're supposed to be stealing each other's ideas here. That's the point. That's why we're taking this time and asking you to share out. So don't feel like, ooh, that's good. I wish I said that. Dang. Keep your pens active during this part. And when someone says something, you're like, oh yeah, that is one of my principles. Or that is a practice that I do or that I want to do. Like that's what this is for, is to cross-pollinate and get each other's ideas. So don't feel at all bad. That is how the activity is supposed to work. Okay, some hands. Ideally, folks we haven't heard from, we'll do these 2 and then we'll go to the back. We got a cluster.
Practice gratitude every night. I mean, writing down 2-3 sentences of what could I be grateful of, in order to transform like a daily, normal day or routine day into a special day. Being grateful for, I don't know, the sun or maybe the wind.
It's so powerful. Raise your hand if you have some practice of writing down things you're grateful for, whether it's in the morning or at night or... Yo, I'm new. I'm a new convert. It is such a powerful activity. Thank you. And if your hand wasn't up, I just try it for like 2 or 3 mornings or nights, whatever your good time is. Just see what you get out of it. I mean, for me, it's been profound. So thank you for sharing that one. We had another one right here.
I strongly believe that, you know, however busy we are in our lives, we should take some time out for ourselves, like have some me time, like any part of the day.
So every single day.
Yeah, have some me time for yourself.
Like how much time?
5 minutes is fine. Like just take calm, like breathe in.
Another.
Grateful for the day and the family and the friends you have.
Another gem. 5 minutes of me time every day. We might be like, well, that's not that much. I probably do that, but do I? Like, did I today? Did I yesterday? Great one. We got a couple back there, and then we're going to have to move on just because of time. So yeah, right there.
Exercise, but the most important part of exercise is taking like 30 minutes for this stretch routine that I have that kind of just from ritual kind of closes out the exercise and means it's over and you can move on to the next thing.
Beautiful. So there's almost 2 there. One is to exercise, which is key. And then the other is like this ritual, like the stretching, closing out. And as someone who just went through physical therapy, because I wasn't doing enough of that, I've learned that stretching is important. I think we had a couple more back there. So yeah, right with the glasses on the head. Yep. Yeah.
So learning new techniques maybe because after a while you do something regularly, you just like don't feel creative. Changing the things the way you do, it helps you to feel more motivated and creative.
Can you give an example of one of those changes?
Let me think. Like when I'm about to maybe design something, a graphic, sometimes I do maybe mind mapping or brainstorming, but I try to use different methods so that I feel like I'm doing something different every time and it keeps me more motivated too.
Beautiful. So it could be a switch up of our methods and our practice. It could also be as simple as take a different route to work or to school today, right? There's all these different ways we can switch that up. We had one more behind you. Yes, right there.
Taking a step back from things.
Take a step back from things. Can you give an example of like what that might look like in your practice?
Sometimes like when I get like more prototyping or just like sketching up stuff, like I just have to take a step back and think about what's the real reason why I'm doing this, or just see it from a different perspective.
Love it. So I'm hearing a mental step back, like, wait, why are we even doing this? Like, what were we setting out to do? But there's also the physical step back, literally, from, you know, if you're building something and you see a different perspective, or you're painting something, or in my writing, I will do that, or I print it because it looks different when I read it on the paper than when I kept staring at it on the screen. So there's different ways we can get that kind of reframe or that shift. Okay, we got to stop there. I know there was some other hands. Thank you for your willingness to share. Sorry we didn't get to hear every single idea. If you want to come up afterwards and share with us, we love this stuff, so please do. But we want to share just a couple other takeaways with you. So a couple things that we've learned from talking to a lot of people have been helpful. One, you do this right now. You can pull out your phone or whatever device you have, or if you're old school, you can make a note in your calendar, setting a reminder to look back at what you just created. We know you're like drinking from a fire hose of information and inspiration here this week, or these few days. Just set a reminder for 2 weeks from now to come back and look at what you just did in this activity. Just peel off those Post-its, read them, maybe do a bigger version of this. Keep making these. Just keep it in mind that you now have this tool in your back pocket, in your notebook. Maybe it's not right away that you need it. Maybe you're just pushing for that graduation right now. You're just grinding. You're going to get there. But what happens after that, right? What about big life events? It's time to look for a different graduate school or a different job. Something in your personal life is shifting. Hold on to this activity as a tool to use in those situations. And then also keeping it up. Tunde talked about this right at the beginning. This was a student of ours who was graduating actually from Stanford, and she wasn't sure what she was doing next. And it was a little bit of a rough transition time. The jobs didn't immediately appear the way that she thought they would. And this really helped her keep an eye on what her goals were, what she was trying to bring to it, what those principles were that grounded her, who the people were, what practices she was trying to build. And she ended up getting a really incredible job at a really incredible company. And she's loving it. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say about what she does, but it's a very cool thing in technology. And we've stayed in touch, and she's talked about using these. But just think about where you can put it up to keep this stuff in the forefront of your mind. So we've really enjoyed having this time with you. We've really enjoyed the way that you jumped in and took on this activity with us. We want to stay in touch with you. If you're interested in staying in touch with us, we would love to hear what challenges you run into if you do try this activity, or maybe even try it with a small group of people when you go home. What didn't work? What did work? What did it unlock? What were some of the really interesting principles other people came up with that you had never heard of? We want to hear it all, and we're also happy to keep sharing with you as we evolve and innovate on the activity. So if you hop on, I'll move my head out of the way, hop on our survey, and it's very short. It's mostly just how do we reach you? We'll keep sharing out as we continue to build this work and grow. And I think we have one final little piece we want to close out with.
One final thing on behalf of Sam and myself, I just want to say thank you. You know, this was one of the first conferences we've been able to attend post this kind of us getting back together. You've been a phenomenal, very active, very willing audience, and we thank you for that. And so for us, that means a lot for us. We cherish the moment to share this kind of information and really grow. We grow every time, so hearing from you. We just want to do one quick selfie if you're okay with that. And okay, well, y'all are spread out. You didn't make it that easy. Sam,
And
get in there.
wait, before we do it, I just also want to thank Leticia and the whole UIF team who have made all this so possible and so smooth. All right, so what are we doing?
And we just doing real, real simple, real self.
All right, let's make it live.
You know what I'm saying? Hey! All right, now we gotta do a video style, so go ahead. Hey!
Hey! Woo!
Thank you all.
Thank you all.